Hello and welcome to the Ask Assaad Show. I'm Michael Gaines, host of the podcast NOV Today, and glad you are joining us today as we bring insight out and provide additional conversation and expert analysis on how we can continue to provide leading innovation and technology in the energy space. So to have that conversation today, we're actually on location here at one of NOV's facilities, our Breen facility, where we have some new technology in the eFrac space, and we'll be talking to special guests today on today's episode. So before we dive in, we're going to go ahead and bring in Shelby Dumaine to talk about how you can be a part of today's conversation. So, hey, Shelby, glad to be out in the open, in the sunshine, and a little warmer than maybe what I would have ordered, but that's okay.
Absolutely. I hope the audience won't mind a little bit of, we'll call it some glow, rather than sweat here in the heat. But yeah, like you said, it's great to be here today. If you're watching this at home right now, whether on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, and would like to get involved in the show, the best way you can do that is by commenting down below. We are in the comment section, even mobile. I have the comment section here. I'll be watching those throughout the entire show. So you can, if you have a question for Assaad or for our expert guest, Travis, who we'll talk about here in just a little bit, go ahead and comment those, and we'll get to as many as we can. And then after the show, if you would like to reach out to us, you can do so by emailing us is the first way. You can email us at askassaad@nov.com. So send us a quick message there, and we'd love to hear more questions or maybe future ideas for another episode. And if you would like to give us a call, you can also reach us that way. That number is country code +1 346 223 4799. So those are all the different ways you can reach us here. But if you would like to ask any questions, like I said, the easiest way, comment those down below, and we're going to get to as many as we can by the end of the show.
Look forward to it. I think it'll be good. So yeah, definitely a special episode today. So as we talked about earlier, we're actually on location, and so one of the primary topics we're going to be talking about is eFrac and what that looks like in the industry today. And of course, we have an expert that will provide some insight for that. But before we get to that, as always, want to bring in Assaad Mohanna, Director of Business Strategy here at NOV. So Assaad,
hey, Michael.
It's nice to know you're a real person. You're not just on my screen. Yeah. You're not an imaginary. Yeah. So that's great. Well, I know that this week has been quite a busy week in the M&A space. I know that it's been really a really busy time.
It has been, Michael. We talked a little bit earlier in the week about a acquisition news between ConocoPhillips and Concho Resources, which earlier this week got confirmed for a $9.7 billion acquisition, which today has become perhaps the largest since the oil crunch in March to happen. That acquisition, Michael, between Conoco and Concho makes ConocoPhillips the largest independent U.S. producer, really surpassing many others. And what's also strategic about this acquisition is that previously ConocoPhillips was a bigger player in the Bakken, as well as in the Eagle Ford plays. Adding Concho to the portfolio gets ConocoPhillips a very, very strong position in the Permian Basin, which everybody's trying to be part of. And that really comes a few days after the Noble acquisition by Chevron closed. And that was an announcement that didn't happen too long ago. Also another one of the big acquisitions, and only a couple of weeks after Devon and WPX joined forces. So a lot of M&A activity, and the one I want to get to, I think, is the big one for us that also got confirmed on Monday, is joining forces between Pioneer Natural Resources, along with Parsley, which is sort of an expected combination. Because there's some history behind the two companies. But I think that also gives Pioneer a pretty significant foothold in the Permian Basin, too. The acquisition was for $4.5 billion If you add to that the debt that Parsley had, that's about $7.6 billion. All these, I would say both ConocoPhillips with Concho, as well as Pioneer and Parsley, are all stock deals. All stock deals are becoming more and more common in the last several months because of the overall environment, because these players are really trying to find synergies between themselves, reduce as much costs as they can to really deliver value from the combined organization.
Right.
So all on the way of consolidation and hopefully the recovery of the industry.
And it is going to be interesting to see, as we talked many months ago, and I think you had some analysis earlier saying, hey, it is looking like the trend will be continued consolidation.
Absolutely.
And here we are. So
yeah,
we'll be interested to see what comes down. So I know that as we are, of course, here in person today, because of a special event that we have today where we're having, actually, we had a showcase talking about some eFrac technology, and so we were able to talk about that today and have a special guest with us.
It's an exciting technology. It's exciting times. We've seen the frac industry as a whole really just exponentially grow in the last decade. And I think today's conversation with our special guest and expert, Travis Bolt, is right on point about eFrac. Travis, welcome to the show.
Great, yeah. So glad you're here, Travis. And so maybe I'll start out, and then I'll give the mic over to Assaad, because he's got a whole list of questions that I know he wants to get at. But for folks that aren't familiar, or maybe say, okay, I know what frac technology is. You say, well, eFrac. I know there's a lot to it, but for folks watching that may not be familiar or just recently heard that, what is eFrac, and how does that compare to a conventional diesel powered frac unit?
Oh, that's a good question, and first of all, thanks for having me. So eFrac is really the natural progression of us learning how to fracture better, and I think that it's become increasingly under the spotlight of trying to do things more socially conscious, environmentally conscious, and really not just producing energy, but how we produce energy, and so what eFrac is really the idea of removing diesel engines and the emissions involved with diesel engines from the well site, and trying to do things maybe a little bit different. If you think about, just to give it a scale, fracturing is a very mechanically intensive process. So we're talking about 50,000 horsepower on site. So it's a lot of horsepower, and the contribution to emissions is not insignificant. So understanding that, eFrac was born out of an idea of trying to reduce fuel cost, but with the new environment of ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance, that's becoming part of the investment infrastructure of our industry. We're seeing increased pressure to also deliver on that, and really the sort of the third leg of that stool, to me, is really eFrac allows us to think about doing things differently by that, different power concepts, different horsepower levels, ultimately bringing less equipment to site, doing things smarter, better feedback.
And I'll follow with that. I think what we've seen, just and Travis, you know this probably better than me, the sheer amount of frac fleets that have flooded the market in the last 5 or 10 years. I think at one point we were north of 450 spreads, over 20 million hydraulic horsepower in nameplate capacity. That's astronomical compared to what we have today in the field. I think we dropped to the low tens, but now we're seeing some sort of recovery, especially as companies go back to fracking the inventory of drilled but uncompleted wells, which makes today's conversation probably even more relevant. So NOV spent clearly some time, your team, NOV, intervention and stimulation equipment.
Yep.
Has spent time over the last several months developing this technology. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so eFrac to NOV is as being us as an OEM, is really us presenting a technology to the market that can allow companies that maybe don't have the internal resources or even the expertise to develop technologies to go and participate in an exciting new space such as this.
Sure.
And so for us, really looking at eFrac from NOV's perspective, it's really an empowering technology. So that's really what we've done is tried to take what would be our existing customer base, understanding their strengths, then maybe where there's some opportunities for knowledge shortfalls and things like that, and really tried to develop a technology that they can build a business around.
Sure.
So that at year 5, year 7, year 10, they're still able to produce effectively with the technology we deliver today.
Yeah. I want to know a little bit about total cost of ownership, how it operates, difference between it and conventional. Tell us more. Give us a little bit more detail on that, Travis.
Yeah, so it's pretty easy in the conversation to get sucked into the economics of fuel savings as well as ESG, and those are all very valid points and very important to the structure of the conversation. But I think there's maybe one more aspect of that, which is the benefit to our customers, the operators or the service companies, and that's the ability to harness electrical power and do things differently, like I mentioned earlier. So, for example, on a conventional frac fleet, we're delivering 50,000 horsepower and 2,500 horsepower increments. You're looking at 20 trailers out there. With us, we're able to go to 5,000 horsepower.
Wow.
So this unit that you see behind us is a 5,000 horsepower, and this would represent the capabilities and functionality of what would be traditionally 2 frac units.
That's awesome.
So that ultimately means we have less bores on service. And then on top of that, we're able to use different pump technologies that let us drive down the maintenance cost and associated downtime with those pumps. And so really where we get excited about this is thinking about letting our customers perform better financially in a tough climate that they have today.
Yeah. Now, Travis, eFrac's not something entirely new. We've seen that technology out there. What makes what you guys have worked on so special?
Well, and I certainly would want to give credit to those who have pioneered in this space, and I think that they've done a great job in this, and I wouldn't take away from that. But I think where NOV brings value to the conversation is we are developing a technology that you can build a business around. So it's not a science project anymore. This is building a technology, a platform that customers can go out and build with. And understanding and going back to maybe some of the challenges that our customers would have adopting an eFrac space, really the simplification of the electrification process, letting our customers focus on pressure pumping and really trying to bring controls and really architecture to it that helps them succeed.
So, Travis, I appreciate you being out here in the very cold Texas sun here with us. But we actually have a couple more for you, and appreciate your insight. So one of the items that I know really has been a hallmark for the eFrac space, and especially looking at continued development in the ESG space, has really been the idea of dual fuel technology and the idea of direct drive turbines. So, and of course, those are technologies and concepts that help reduce carbon footprint, which is definitely a mainstay in that space. So, so how are those concepts really maybe different from the ideal eFrac solution like we have here?
Sure, and that's a very good question, and the industry itself is wrestling with what that answer is. For us, when we consider these different technologies, I would refer to it back as a 3-legged stool. You have to have the technology, which would be a technical benefit. You have to have economic benefit, and then I would say, now in our world today, we have to have an ESG benefit. And depending on which flavor that you might go after, whether it's dual fuel maybe scratches that ESG, but the challenge being is you haven't really advanced your technical capabilities. You're still going to be bringing 20 units out to site. Direct drive turbines is another one that maybe lets you to increase that that horsepower, but also and help on the emission side. But it does present some significant technical challenges that you have to overcome. And I think where eFrac is really exceptional is it hits on all three of those things, and we don't have to look very far. We can look at rigs, for example, but you can also look at rail, you can look at marine, you can look at mining. We're going through the natural progression of technologies as an industry, and really I think once people get a flavor for the controllability, the feedback, and the reliability of electrical, I think you're going to see a real race.
So this wouldn't be the Ask Assaad show if we didn't have some core business questions. So I know Assaad has one for you.
I got one that may be a little heavy, but I'll ask you, Travis, and you'll forgive me later. Why would I buy a frac spread when really nobody's buying anything? We're really not drilling too many wells, and the economic environment is what it is.
No, well, so that's a great question, and I would say that it sort of starts where most conversations in this space or in our industry start, and it's with the operators. Mm-hmm. The operators are continuing to get pressure from investors to produce efficiently, effectively, and without huge amount of emissions. And to the point where it's now becoming part of their contracts. When they go out and they seek a pressure pumper, they're putting those requirements on the pressure pumper. And to deliver on these new RFPs and new RFIs, you have to have an ESG solution. And I point to an industry. There was a Simmons paper, I believe, that came out this spring, and it said eFrac went from 3% to 30% market share during the COVID downturn. And I think it's an important correlation, not to say that suddenly everybody went and got eFrac contracts, but what we're seeing is the industry is rewarding eFrac solutions with longer contracts. Yep. And so there's definitely a motivation from those who are sort of closest to the wellhead and the producers to deliver these solutions, and we're seeing it show up in contracts.
And I'll back up those numbers with some more numbers. I went back and I look at the May market share for eFrac. And indeed, out of 47 spreads out there, there were 15 of them that were electrically operated. Yep. So some outstanding market, but those are the ones that stick out. And I got to tell you, Travis, you haven't built an eFrac unit here. You haven't built just a new technology. You've built a system or a business model that works a lot better in this current environment, not, from an ESG perspective, but also from a profitability standpoint.
I believe so.
Yeah.
And it's not just eFrac for the sake of eFrac. It's really it's a technology platform. That really is setting the stage for tomorrow.
You conclude, Michael.
Yeah. So and before I get my my last question for you, Travis, for those that are watching us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, if you have any questions on eFrac technology, concepts behind them, or how NOV is approaching the space, feel free to in chat box, whether you're watching us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, and we will try to get to those questions in just a little bit. We again have the opportunity to talk with one of our subject matter experts here on the Ask Assaad Show, and want to be able to answer any of the questions that you have. If you've never heard of eFrac, or if you've heard about it but don't really understand maybe some of the concepts or why it is an emerging trend, certainly a great time to ask those questions. Or of our expert director of business strategy, Assaad Mohanna, as well. Certainly want to get those questions to you. So go ahead and put those in, and we look forward to getting those in a minute. My last question for you, Travis. So we look at the eFrac technology and looks really great, shiny and new. So the question is this kind of taking the space of conventional frac technology, or do we still continue as NOV to continue to provide those solutions?
No, it certainly does not. There's more than enough opportunity to fit all of those needs, and eFrac is a solution, but it is not the solution. There's different places where different technologies play. And so, no, NOV will continue to support the conventional space. We think it's an important space, unconventional fracturing space, if you will. No, we definitely see a place there. And we don't say that dual fuel is or direct drive turbines are not the solutions either. We do believe that eFrac has an opportunity, though, to really set a new trend in the space.
Great. All right. Well, Travis, really appreciate the insight and really the conversation regarding the eFrac technology that you and many colleagues have worked to produce and look forward to having some additional perspective as things develop. We're actually going to go ahead and bring in Shelby. It looks like we've got some Q&A for you, Travis. So
Okay.
so sit tight.
Sounds good.
Yeah, just here in the last, the final lap, we got a great question come in. So Shankar on LinkedIn was wondering, with using the eFrac, he's assuming that the general noise level at a job site, would it be favorable from an HSE standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. So we see conventional fleets operating around 115 decibels. eFrac is going to operate in around 85 decibels to 90 decibel range. So a huge impact there in terms of being able to function around site, and then also the hearing protection required.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, so I think if you have any other questions that we didn't get to today and you still want to reach out to us, like I said, you can email us at askassaad@nov.com, or you can give us a call at country code +1 346 223 4799. So please let us know if you have any other questions. We'd absolutely love to answer them and get you in touch with Travis, or if it's a question for Assaad, we can get you to him too. So I'm going to pass the mic back over to Mike.
Yeah, one of the casualties of the name. Well, great. Well, this has been great. Thank you, Shelby. Thank you, Travis, for really sharing your insight here. And Assaad, always appreciate the analysis. And of course, this wouldn't be a great show without our viewers. So thank you for tuning in. And as always, from NOV, we're grateful for your viewership. And again, if you have any questions, let us know. So from all of us here at NOV, thanks for watching and for listening. And we'll talk to you next time.